This is Mike.
Can you fight?
You can fight. Oh, you motherfucker can't fight. Look at you. Look.
Fam, what's goody? It's CJ Williams with Culturalist Theory. No, it's not deja vu. We promised to follow up to the 90s and we're here to deliver. Same rules apply for this Will Smith ranking of the 2000s. This will be based on movie quality and not individual performances. Also, this is from his films from 2000 to 2009. We've got that 2010 list to present coming soon. So pop your popcorn, kick your feet up, and get active down in the comments. Let's get it. Number 11, The Legend of Bagger Vance. If you're unfamiliar with the term magical Negro, just think of a period piece where the black character somehow seems to have supernatural abilities intended for the advancement of white people. If you're wondering who coined the term, we have Spike to thank for that. Fun fact, he was talking about this movie when he discussed the concept. Well, this and 3 others, including Green Mile with Tom Hanks, Family Man, and What Dreams May Come True. The film isn't just a reflection on self-centeredness and delusion, but it's a clear snapshot of Hollywood's morals and perceptions of black people. I lie to you not. Will materialized out of nowhere, turned down $1,000 for his services, and didn't have an ounce of plot dedicated to his character. Most of these disconnected from reality roles precede actors' big breaks, kind of like taking what you can get for the exposure. But in Will's case, this film couldn't have come at a worse time. After one of his biggest career roles to date in Independence Day, he suffered back-to-back flops with Wild Wild West and this film. Initially, Morgan Freeman and Robert Redford were going to fill out the lead roles, but even they could see the optics. Filmed on an $80 million budget, the movie would recoup less than half of that at the box office. Safe to say they won't be rolling out any remakes of this one anytime soon. Number 10, Men in Black 2. We know the Men in Black franchise is cherished in households across America, but if we're keeping it a stack, we couldn't even tell this film was operating on a $140 million budget, and that's a problem. The cameos from Michael Jackson and Biz Markie definitely had us cracking a smile or two, but as far as sequels go, this second installment wasn't MIB, it was MID. We appreciate quick and concise films as much as the next channel, but the majority of this 90-minute film was dedicated to restoring Kay's memory from the last movie. Gave it the feel of a segue instead of a sequel. Will has a pattern of working with actors more than once. This time we see him reuniting with Laura Flynn Boyle from Where the Day Takes You. Talk about deja vu.
Sorry.
Number 9, Hancock. Before the MCU redefined what we thought a blockbuster could be, superhero movies were a studio's refuge to throw money and special effects at the wall in hopes of seeing what stuck. Hancock is no exception. I'd be lying if I told you the script or actors in the film surprised me. Aside from Hancock's profane demeanor, the story was very by the book. What did serve as a major surprise, however, was the name that scrolled by under the writer's credits. Vince Gilligan, writer and creator of Breaking Bad, along with V. Vincent Ngo, shaped the story of our modern vigilante turned black Superman. That might be the most surprising fact we uncovered while going through his whole filmography. Scratch that. The fact that Will and Charlize worked with each other again after Bagger Vance has to be just as shocking. Aside from The Meteor Man with Robert Townsend, Steel with Shaq, and Blade with Wesley Snipes, Will is one of the first black superheroes we've ever seen depicted on screen. If you ignore the story and enjoy the action at face value, you'll see they didn't cut any corners either with a $150 million budget. He didn't win any awards for this one, but even his more laughable films generate over $500 million at the global box office. Number 8, Shark Tale. Damn CJ, how you put a kids movie over Men in Black? Don't let the rating fool you. Shark Tale might be animated, but it's far from a children's movie. With James Gandolfini originally being considered for the role of Don Lino, and the inclusion of Michael Imperioli, Vincent Pastor, Lenny Venito, and Frank Vincent, the movie is closer to a season of The Sopranos than Finding Nemo. Hyperbole aside, Will's charisma and the writers in the DreamWorks room were far more dynamic and interesting than the entries we've mentioned so far. It's rare to see a cast including Will Smith, Robert De Niro, Scorsese, and Angelina Jolie not stand a chance during award season. It's also rare to compete against 2 high-quality films like The Incredibles and Shrek 2 in the same year. Needless to say, the best animated feature was ironically out of Oscar's reach. A couple fun facts about our friends from the sea: Shark Tale would be the 9th highest grossing film that year. Hans Zimmer would compose the score solo dolo, claiming he was tired of doing epics, 1 year before working with Christopher Nolan on Batman Begins. Also, there was no shortage of actors considered for the role of Oscar. Some of the names that could have voiced the iconic character include Usher, Sam Jackson, LL Cool J, Bernie Mac, Keith David, Terrence Howard, and even 50 Cent tested for the role. We're glad the studios got the right guy, guy, although a Bernie Mac animated flick sounds like the comedy we didn't know we needed. Rest in peace to the legend. Number 7, iRobot. Around the late 90s, early 2000s, a deep paranoia of technological advancements crept up through American society, commonly labeled as the Y2K era. iRobot takes that a step further, having a technophobic cop solving a whodunit mystery while feeling isolated in his views against machinery. While the final product we get is just fine, knowing what earlier iterations of the script called for leaves us feeling like a lot of money was left on the table. At first, the story was going to employ more psychological elements, having the audience and Spooner himself question whether he was in his right mind or not. Believe it or not, they changed the whole feel for the script once Will signed on to do the project. In 20th Century Fox's mind, they weren't just paying for Will Smith's services to end on a cliffhanger. They wanted him to clearly and unquestionably save the world. So while we end up with an action thriller, we could have gotten a psychological drama. I don't know about you, but I definitely would have paid tickets to see the latter. Funny enough, Denzel was offered the role of Dale Spooner before agreeing to the Manchurian Candidate instead. Another drawback of hiring the biggest movie star on the planet, that price tag isn't for the faint of heart. The studio and personnel on board wanted to make a sequel to the movie, but Smith's price outpaced what would be feasible for another installment. We get it though, he crashed a motorcycle going 60 miles an hour. If you watch closely enough, you can even see the moment when Will starts to lose control of the bike. Talk about getting your money's worth. Number 6, 7 pounds. If you've ever wondered why one-hit wonders have a hard time repeating their success, look no further than Will Smith and Gabriella Muccino in 7 pounds. Despite delivering arguably the best performances of their respective careers with The Pursuit of Happyness just 2 years earlier, 7 pounds fails to come close to its predecessor by any metric. Spoiler alert, although that whole Romeo and Juliet, I would die for you to live kind of story has been done before, we can at least say we see traces of 7 pounds in a film like The Fault in Our Stars. Still, the reveal didn't pack the emotional punch the writers thought it would. The man literally spent 7 seconds texting and driving at night with a Palm Pilot. What did he expect? If it's one thing we can say the cast and crew got right, it was reuniting Will and Rosario after their brief time together in MIB 2. If we were ranking these films based on the chemistry of the main leads, we'd be having a different conversation. Let us know down in the comments if y'all would tap in for that. Also worth noting, Tom Hanks of all people auditioned for the role of Ben. We don't know what the script looked like when they were filling out the cast, but the thought of Tom texting and driving sounds like something out of an SNL skit. Number 5, Bad Boys 2. If you thought the first Bad Boys was a banger, imagine an empowered Michael Bay with an extra 9 figures to work with. Knowing this film would be competing with The Matrix Reloaded and the 03 Hulk, the studio basically turned into a Brinks dealership. Yes, this film is easily the most memorable of the franchise so far, but it's also the longest, and it's not really close. We get about 5 shootouts, 4 car chases, demolition of 3 city blocks, 2 busted pools, and 1 Gabrielle Union, bringing the runtime just shy of 2.5 hours. For a film with less plot than a soap opera and even less dialogue, we're almost impressed with how much they managed to stretch this one out. Still, a top 5 finish isn't bad for what he still has in the tuck. Oh yikes, can't talk about the film without looking at Bay sideways. If you blink, you might miss her, but a 15-year-old Megan Fox makes a super brief cameo in the film, said to be her theatrical debut. What was she doing, you ask? Well, she's credited as Stars and Stripes bikini kid dancing under waterfall. I kid you not.
I had just turned 15 and I was an extra in Bad Boys 2. I was wearing a Stars and Stripes bikini and a red cowboy hat and like 6-inch heels.
We've always heard that Fox got herself booted from the Transformers franchise because she was beyond difficult to work with. That could also be true, but we're wondering how much of the bad blood between the two professionals could be traced back to this very role. Hollywood's got a lot of explaining to do. Number 4, Ali. Will Smith as Muhammad Ali is one of his most iconic roles. So iconic, it earned him his first nomination for Best Actor. I like to think of myself as a glass half full kind of guy, but knowing what could have gone into the film makes it hard to see the positives of the final product. For starters, Spike's name was in preliminary discussions to direct the film. After seeing what he did with Malcolm X, it feels like Michael Mann was a huge step in the wrong direction. Respectfully, Albert Hall and Giancarlo Esposito would have even served as familiar faces on set. Yo, speaking of Malcolm X, shout out to our guy Mario Van Peebles, but he was at a major disadvantage following Denzel's performance. He might have looked the part, but he just couldn't get the demeanor and cadence down. 9 times out of 10, a movie's quality will be indicative of an actor's performance and vice versa. This film isn't one of those 9. Although both Smith and Voight rightfully deserved their nominations and could have won without any objections from the CT family, the film itself felt far removed from any Best Motion Picture talks. Did the choice to have Michael Mann over Spike Lee cost everyone involved some precious hardware? That's a hypothetical we'll leave for you to discuss down in the comments. While you're at it, let us know if Ali is on your Mount Rushmore of biopics. Number 3, Hitch. We want to remind audiences everywhere that Culturalist Theory is not a political organization, but we are and always will be for the culture. Bear with me for a moment. Back when segregation was still legally enforceable in the US, certain states had a policy of sending black students to college tuition-free as long as it was someone else's problem. In other words, administrators thought they were punishing black students by depriving them of the ability to go to school with their white counterparts, even at the financial expense of the state itself. Fast forward to 2005, and the film industry found themselves employing the same practice. You see, the studio wouldn't commit to a white lead actress in the film out of the fear that an interracial rom-com would be too problematic. More trouble than it was worth. But they also wouldn't commit to a black actress for fears that it would alienate a white audiences. After all, a black love story couldn't possibly be interesting to white people, so they settled for a Hispanic love interest instead, and so a Will Smith and Eva Mendes love story was born. In summary, studio executives thought Will Smith and his melanated constituents would lose sleep over the fact that he was chasing Mendes instead of Angelina Jolie or Natalie Portman. We ranked Hitch so high because despite the blatant prejudices and stereotypical thinking of the time, the film is refreshing in its approach to both romance and comedy. Call it a difference in cultural values, but we found the chemistry and story to be more compelling than competition like The Notebook, The Holiday, or How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. The role of Alex Hitchens underscores Will's versatility while returning him back to his heartthrob roots. In the span of 3 years, we saw him blowing up cars with Michael Bay, voicing a fish in a children's comedy, and setting Kevin James up with a socialite 10 years younger than him. Also, for those keeping track of Drake comparisons, this film would have to be Smith in his Take Care bag, no question. Number 2, I Am Legend. Smith is no stranger to the post-apocalyptic genre, with arguably his biggest film to date, Independence Day, also seeing him save the world. We don't know if it was the isolation of being the only character for the majority of the film, or flashbacks from the COVID pandemic, but this one definitely hits a little different. Starring as Dr. Robert Neville, a US Army virologist trying to slow the outbreak in New York City, aka Ground Zero. Think of Neville's character as Dr. Fauci with an M16 and a Mustang. It's crazy, right? To have the budget it had and check off the boxes it does, you would think they rolled this film out right before the start of summer movie season. Nope, it opened in theaters in December. At the time, the largest box office a non-Christmas film has ever seen in the US, incorporating elements of action, horror, suspense, and psychological thriller. Will's performance was so convincing we had to restock our doomsday bunkers just in case. The script has a couple of key variations from the material it was adapted from, all solid alterations, and Smith gives one of his most captivating performances, but as far as plot holes go, this has to be one of the worst endings of all time. So bad they shot an alternate ending which should have been the original in the first place. We highly recommend watching the film and its alternate ending, so we're going to keep the spoilers to a minimum. But let's just say the Nightcrawler set up a trap that required way too much intelligence for that lazy ass headbanging we got towards the end of the movie. The sequel with Michael B is still on the way though. Definitely excited to see what that looks like. Number 1, The Pursuit of Happyness. Based on a true story with a few creative liberties taken here and there, Will and his son Jaden put on a performance for the ages. Rags to riches stories are a dime a dozen, even the ones based in reality. But rarely does said material elicit such a profoundly moving response. Grabbing his second Best Actor nomination in just 5 years, this wasn't big budget Will, it was Fresh Prince Will for sure.
How come you don't want me, man?
Smith and Muccino were so good in this one that if we're being honest, our expectations for 7 pounds probably knocked it down a spot or two from where it would have been had this film never come out. Every generational actor has that one film that completely broadens their horizon, that reminds audiences they can't be pigeonholed. For Denzel, that film was Malcolm X. For DiCaprio, it was The Departed. And for Will, The Pursuit of Happyness ushered him into the pantheon of the world's greatest actors. Hey, is someone cutting onions? No, just me? Okay, cool. This might be the end of this ranking, but we still got another Will video this week that we haven't covered. Stay tuned for his 2010s to present day films coming soon. And if you like this video, make sure to hit that button. I'm not talking just to hear my voice. Subscribe if you haven't already. You know you're not gonna find dope ass content like this anywhere else on the tube.